Lexapro and kids. You've been led to believe that it is safe and effective, and we're going to figure out what that means today. This is the Gaslit Truth Podcast. I'm Dr. Teralyn with therapist Jenn. If you are here, please like, subscribe, comment. If this has ever put meaning into something that you've been thinking about, supporting it matters.
That's right. And for everybody, if you're ever interested in getting off of your psych meds, you got to call Dr. Terry and I up because this is what we do. We can help you get off of Lexapro safely and effectively for your brain and for your body. And this is exactly the drug that we're going to talk about today with David Wayne, our resident psych nurse, COVID dissident. I mean, this is like, look at this guy going. Guys, David emailed us today or recently, and the first two words in the email were, "Sup, bitches." And I was like, "Oh my God. Like, what this we are at that level now, David."
Yep.
I feel like this is where we
sure
are.
At. Yeah.
And this morning
like,
we
wow,
all come on.
You came in hot on that one, David. All right.
we all come on, guys. And okay, we've all got our Gaslit Truth mugs. So if you guys are watching us live, I can see there's some people watching us live. Wait, I gotta look at this. Look at it. We're deep throating truth here. Look at, I can't even. We're all here with our mugs, everybody. David is going to talk about some major gaslighting here that's happening within a study specific to Lexapro. So welcome to the show, David.
Happy to be here and really excited about discussing this topic with you two.
I'm so in it too. I can't wait to talk about this. I can't wait.
I mean, I listen to all sorts of podcasts that are, somewhat professionally affiliated, lots of things about mental health, lots of things about metabolic health. But when I want to just listen to people riff on things and swear and make it fun, like that's where the Gaslit Truth comes in. You guys talk about the things I'm interested in, but you also make it very fun and enjoyable. So yeah.
I appreciate that. Yes, I appreciate that a lot. And yeah, that's the whole goal. That is the entirety of the goal. So if you're interested in the actual truth, said in a way that is non-professional. Half the time.
I know, right? It is.
Of the time.
Well, this is how we act in real life. So, you're not getting two fake hosts here. Like if you were our therapy clients, this is the shit you'd hear. I mean, this is just it. This is how we operate. So, okay. All right. So David, why don't you jump into this? You just wrote an article, a blog out on X, and it was fantastic. And it was about Lexapro and the gaslighting that has occurred around this. So why don't you dive into this? Let's piece this apart.
All right. So the market for psychotropic meds for kids is enormous. There are millions of kids with some sort of psych diagnosis or another, and that is worth billions of dollars if you can get prescribers to throw meds at them. So this has been known for a long time, and it's actually led to some incredible pharma scandals, such as Paxil. The Paxil Study 329 scandal, I would put it past Vioxx at this point. Vioxx was horrible because they knew there were cardiac side effects and it went on to kill 55,000 people. But at the same time, Vioxx was also a very effective pain medication. Patients liked it. Doctors loved it. That, of course, doesn't justify killing tens of thousands of people, but that's up there for one of the worst pharma scandals of all time. The situation with Paxil for kids was it was all risk, no benefit, and they knew it. They knew that these kids did not benefit at all from Paxil, and yet they still aggressively marketed Paxil for kids, leading to hundreds, if not thousands, of suicides. And they knew that would happen. It was in their data. They knew it was going to increase suicidal thoughts. But the study they ended up publishing saying it was safe and effective was totally ghost authored. The whole thing was a fraud. That study has never been retracted. And of course, nobody went to prison because that's the system that we live in. And, if that sounds like a one-off, if you think like, well, that's pretty horrible, but there's no way that these things happen over and over. Let's talk about Lexapro.
Yes. Lexapro has entered the chat.
Here we go. So I'm going to stay calm on this one, David, as somebody who has been titrating off of this SSRI for 2 years and 7 months. That's a lie. I'm not going to stay calm on this. Let's blow it up.
Yeah, let's blow it up. Okay. So This came to my attention because I follow Joanna Moncrief and Mark Horowitz, who are both doing fantastic work in the
Yes.
deprescribing community and the
Big hearts.
dangerous anti-psychiatry community that
they've
is
both
chasing
been on
people away
dangerous.
from
They've
life-saving
both been
meds.
on this
So
show.
dangerous.
We love
Mhm.
them.
Yeah, they're
Yes.
awesome.
Mhm.
So they have this horrible habit of when they see a study that seems like it's gaslighting people, they go after the data themselves and then republish an independent analysis.
How
How
dare they?
horrible of them. These
The
Without conflicts
audacity.
of interest,
I
without
know.
oh my
It
God.
cannot. Mm-hmm.
And so they just
Jen's
republished.
fainting. She's fainting over there.
Yeah, I know, just horrible, dangerous conspiracy theorists that they are. So they published a reanalysis of a study that was put out by Strawn et al. That says Lexapro is safe and effective for kids. And so I would love to dive into the data with you because what ended up getting published is honestly astounding. Like in the case of Paxil, all their data says this is completely unsafe and completely ineffective. It's going to cause suicides. And what they ended up doing was, ghost authoring something that lied. In the case of Strawn, I would argue that it's even worse because they didn't bother fudging their data. They just like published it as is. All their data suggests that this is completely ineffective and also very unsafe. And then it got peer reviewed. Okay, how does that happen? How does it
I
pass
don't
peer
know.
review?
David,
Yeah.
after I read this, because it's on X. So what is your handle on X in case people want to
Yep.
read what you wrote? What's the handle?
It's at Describe Health, and
Describe Mm-hmm.
the article title is Lexapro, Unsafe, Ineffective, and Approved Anyway. So if you
Okay.
search it, that's how you'll be able to
X
find
and
it.
Go to
find
X,
that,
guys,
'cause
and it's
a
fantastic.
well-written little blurb, and so it's
Yes,
a
it
big
is.
blurb. The biggest thing for me is the words safe and effective. We use so many words that don't mean anything.
Yeah.
And safe and effective or safer or all these things are in that landscape of that. So I want to make sure everyone gets to that article if you're listening today. So read it. It's very
Yes,
good.
read it. And in that article, David actually references out what we're going to talk about today, which is what he pieces apart, which is this Strawn study that was done. Okay. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Before we get into like the nitty gritty of how really messed up this was, because what I love about David, guys, is we have a lot of people that come on the show and they're like, well, I don't know how to read research. And I don't know, like, I'm kind of the lay person when it comes to understanding research. Believe it or not, in this X article, David breaks down everything you need to look for. So if
Yes,
you're like
it's
the
great.
lay person who's trying to understand, like, is this research study something that I should put any stock into? He breaks down all the stuff that you need to look for. And in the Strawn study, he actually calls out, and this is what we're going to talk about, all of the holes and the like things that were in this. And so can you give people an overview on what the Strawn study was about?
Sure. So the Strawn study was about children age 7 to 17 and whether or not Lexapro would be effective for decreasing their anxiety. So this wasn't looking at depression. Lexapro is, of course, an antidepressant, but anxiety was specifically what the researchers were looking at here. Is this going to be safe and effective for kids with anxiety without a bunch of other psychiatric diagnoses? That's what they wanted to measure.
Yes. And how they measured it. Can you tell everybody what they used to measure this, the scale?
Yeah, so they ended up using about 7 different anxiety scales, and there's enormous amounts of overlap in these different scales, but they decided that there was one scale that was better than the other scales, and so that became their primary outcome. It's like, okay, with this anxiety scale, did these kids benefit? And boy, this is where the gaslighting really starts to light up, because let's talk about the phrase benefits. Like, what comes to mind if you think like this person benefited from this medication? I would think, well, that means they got better, right? In some perceivable way. And that's the first mind-blowing thing about this study, is that none of these kids on Lexapro versus placebo benefited from the medication in a perceivable way, in a clinical way, in a way that they felt as a patient. So
Yes.
they did not themselves experience benefit from it clinically, but the study authors decided that statistically, looking at all these scores pooled together, there was a statistical benefit to them, even if they didn't feel it as a patient. And right off the bat,
That's the
there, it's like,
gaslighting.
this
That's
is our
gaslighting right there.
effective. It
Yeah.
is
Yes.
gaslighting. It's.
Are you talking about the Pediatric Anxiety Rating Scale, PARS? Is
I
that
am
PARS?
PARS.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So just a little bit of background on PARS. There's like 3 scales: the parent, the provider or scientist, and then the child can rate themselves too. And I would argue, I don't know how you rate a 7-year-old on this. Like, how would a scientist rate a 7-year-old's anxiety? And by the way, also, just in case you guys are wondering, in the description, it is rating it over the past week. So it's
Yes.
like you're rating your anxiety over the past week. All right. Not a global assessment, the past week. And also, if you're a parent, and I don't know how they administered it, if it was just a scientist that administered it, or if parents actually filled it out on behalf of the child, depending upon their age, or if the kids filled it out themselves. But I know as a parent, if I think my kid has anxiety, I'm probably going to rate them a lot higher than what they actually have. And I pulled up the rating scale just because I was like, what is this? What are the questions that they're asking? And okay, keep in mind 7 to 17. Okay. And they're all getting lumped into the same bucket here, right? There's no differentiation of age. It's just 7 to 17. Reluctant or refuse to use a public bathroom. I'm reluctant to use a public bathroom because they're disgusting. And I told my kids to be reluctant to use them too, by the way.
That's clearly pathological. Come on.
Fear or avoid talk with a stranger. Talking with a stranger. Don't we tell our kids to not talk to strangers?
Exactly.
Like there are some questions in here that I'm just like, what the frick is this all about? These things. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I want to add,
Jen's got
guys,
a thought.
I do. I have a thought here. So when you're going through and reading research, one of the things to look at is the assessments that they're using. So we were talking about measurements, all right, that was being used by the PARS, which is the Pediatric Anxiety Rating Scale. Little tidbit of information on that scale. That rating scale was funded by the National Institute of Mental Health in conjunction with a grant from Solvay Pharmaceuticals. So this rating scale itself, guys, was funded. Its creation was funded by pharma.
And that's a marketing ploy that goes back
it has
to
a huge
Pfizer
conflict of interest.
Right. Yeah.
Correct. So when we talk about conflicts of interest,
Right.
here's something
And
to
it
think about.
It was done. Yeah, and it was for research with pharmaceuticals, I believe. That's psychopharmacology, I believe, was the exclusivity of the reason that this scale exists, right? So of course they're going to be
Right.
measuring different things that are not like functional things that a kid would actually do during the day. They're going to measure weird other things. So yeah. Anyway, that's the scale.
These scales were all designed in order to supercharge sales of psychiatric meds by non-psychiatrists. They wanted nurse practitioners and family medicine doctors to be comfortable slinging psych meds at people. That's the origin of all these scales. Like, well, I'm not a psychiatrist, but this kid scored XYZ on this depression scale or this anxiety scale, so now I feel comfortable writing this prescription. That was the origin of them. It's interesting too to look at the point in time, like, okay, we're going to measure the anxiety of children. What was going on at the time that they were conducting this study? Well,
Tell us about it, David.
It was COVID, the BLM riots, and the election that was called the loss of our democracy itself. So that's that's the environment in which they're asking kids, like, hey, are you afraid to be in groups of people, as they're seeing riots on TV
Yes.
and being told they need to be 6 feet away from everyone and their
Or
school's
this,
getting closed.
do you worry about everyday or real life problems? That's on here. No, they weren't worried about
Yeah.
any of that during
Nah,
that time.
life's all good.
How would my 10-year-old would answer that? Like,
How would a
I don't- what-
7-year-old?
what do you
This was
mean?
my
Okay.
question. Like, how
But-
would these young elementary school kids actually answer these questions? Like, seriously,
Right,
there's no
right.
way.
So
Mhm.
that was what
There's
was going
no
on in
way.
the world. That was going on in the world at the time. The other interesting part of this is that this study, this was done over the course of 8 weeks, right, David?
Yeah, 8 weeks,
Mhm.
an 8-week
So-
study.
We're going to talk
Of
about
course.
that next. So, David, why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about how the study was set up and the duration of this?
So yeah, an 8-week study was 137 kids on Lexapro and 136 on placebo. And of course, these medications take a couple weeks to take effect. So they're doing these scales over the course of the study. Obviously, we just discussed how there's not really a big change in scores. In fact, at the end of the study, the number of kids who would still qualify for a diagnosis of anxiety was exactly the same in the Lexapro group as it was in the placebo group. So they had no decrease in the number of kids who would qualify for a diagnosis of anxiety over the course of this very short study. So again, in terms of safe and effective, how effective are we talking about here? Like
I guess
it's
it's safe enough to do nothing.
right. Well, that's the thing. Like, that's the thing, because we know these medications don't do nothing. We know that they have
That's true.
profound effects on every body system, and of course, including your brain. But it's not that they are inert. When we talk about the placebo effect, no, that the placebo implies it's not doing anything. In this case, it's not doing anything for anxiety, but it is having profound
Correct.
physiological effects. Just ask anyone who's trying to taper off of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that was part of the conversation that you had written about, like, or that I had seen, like, the long-term negative impact on the PAR scale. Actually, one of the critiques is it doesn't measure any of that. So it only measures, like, the same questions, but it doesn't say, like, did you gain weight? Are you sluggish? How's your sleep? Like, all of that. Like, it doesn't measure any of those. And the other part that I found interesting, not to jump ahead, but measuring the loss of sexual behaviors, right? So
Yeah.
that's an interesting thing to talk about. I'd like to talk about that.
Yeah, it was egregiously omitted because it is the standard of care at this point. It is so well known that antidepressants cause sexual side effects in so many people that even these completely pharma captured organizations acknowledge you have to screen people for their sexual function before initiating an antidepressant and then routinely during therapy. And that's been the standard for years. It was the standard before this study was conducted by Strawn et al., and they didn't do it. And
Well, because why should we worry about a kid's sexual behavior?
right. Yeah, kids aren't sexual beings, right? Like,
My 7-year-old isn't sexual. Why would I even care if this impacts sexual behavior at 7? Why would I care? Well, you would care because that could be a lifetime decision for that 7-year-old.
Yep.
And that's kind of stuff makes me wonder about, like, asexuality. All these young people are like, I'm asexual, I'm all these things. And I'm like, you're all on psych meds. You're
exactly.
probably all on psychiatric medication, but that's the thing, because asking the hard questions that make people uncomfortable, like asking a 7-year-old about their genitalia, right? Asking an 8-year-old about their genitalia, those are uncomfortable things to ask a young person. And so I think then we just dismiss it because it's too uncomfortable and maybe I shouldn't ask that. Or is it even important to ask a 7-year-old about that stuff? The answer to that is yes, because that 7-year-old is likely going to be on a stack of medication by the time that they are 18. And their sexuality is huge in their humanity. That's my soapbox. There you go.
Well, I think you also have to understand what PSSD is to be able to ask those appropriate questions, because the thought is, well, they're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. They're not sexually active. That has nothing to do with the picture of what PSSD actually is.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think there's such a level of naivety that exists there that you have to know what it is in the first place. So the ability to just kind of scrub this one and just ignore it from the study, actually, for most people, they wouldn't catch. They'd go, well, yeah, we're studying 10-year-olds. Why would we ask about their sexual gumption? We wouldn't.
Yeah.
Right. Not to mention, just from a parental perspective, the idea is I'm saving their life. So if it impacts their sexuality later, I just saved their life, so it doesn't matter.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the 16-to-1 benefit of Lexapro.
That part.
That must exist, but we're saving lives. David, can you talk about that? We're saving lives, but yet it's a 16-to-1 benefit.
Yeah, so you must be talking about the number needed to treat, right? So one of the ways that we are gaslit constantly is through statistics. We are just manipulated with statistics in all these pharma ads, in the newscasts, which are, funded by pharmaceutical companies. We're sold on things like, hey, this is 70% effective. And they really like to couch the evidence of benefit in terms of relative risk reduction and side effects in terms of absolute. Why do they do that? Because when you do it in a relative way, you get huge numbers that sound impressive to people. And when you do it in an absolute way, you get tiny numbers that don't sound all that important. And it's just a way that we are constantly manipulated. So in the case of this study, when you looked at their numbers, another way to phrase a benefit to people in a way that's more accessible than, I'm talking about relative and absolute risk reduction, and people's eyes immediately glaze over because nobody likes statistics, and especially lay people. So that's why they came up with a way to frame it in terms of number needed to treat. So number needed to treat is, hey, how many people in my situation have to take this medication for one to benefit? That's way easier to wrap your mind around. And by the data from the Strawn study, the number of kids who would need to take Lexapro in order for just one kid to benefit is about 16 or 17. And remember, by benefit, we mean that kid won't actually feel better, but our statistical analysis of this one scale says that statistically they will be better, even if they don't perceive it themselves. So
how is that even a thing? That doesn't even make sense to me.
That don't make no sense.
That don't make
16. So 16 kids
have to be harmed.
17 kids.
I'm going to say 16, 17 kids have to be harmed in order for one to benefit, who is also harmed, by the way.
Was also harmed, right?
Guys, and when we say harmed in this study, and actually David breaks this down really well in his X blog that he wrote, to benefit, he breaks down like placebo versus Lexapro when it comes to suicidal ideation. Okay, so when you were talking about 16 kids have to take it for one to benefit, of those 16 kids, 9.5% of them on Lexapro became suicidal versus the only 1.5% that were on the placebo.
Yeah. So there was a huge signal there, and they actually did have a suicide attempt. One of the kids who was taking Lexapro actually tried to kill themselves. So overall, in terms of causing suicidal thoughts, in Lexapro, they saw 13 kids, and on the placebo, they saw 2. So they had to do ridiculous magic math in order to find some sort of evidence of benefit. In terms of risk, it is glaring how dangerous this drug is when given to kids. Because remember, we're only talking about 120 some kids here for only a very short duration of time. For 13 of them to become suicidal in that short amount of time on the medication is it's an incredible.
Did it even say, I'm going to guess the answer is no to this, like how long did it take those kids to become suicidal? That is a question I might have, because I know it's just an 8-week study, but I'm guessing it didn't take them 8 weeks to feel suicidal.
Yeah, I'm not sure the time frame for
Hmm.
that, or what the average was. I'm not sure.
Hmm. There was also some information about dropout. They talked about, or you mentioned something about dropout, and um, dropout is obviously when people drop out of the study. But there was a few reasons why people dropped out, which I felt were interesting to note.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, what were the reasons for dropout?
So they had a couple kids drop out from the placebo group, and one was for suicidal thoughts, and another was for just profound depression. They decided to withdraw them from the study. But in the Lexapro group, they had twice as many kids drop out. One was for nosebleeds, and that might sound benign, or that might sound like it's nothing, but really bad nosebleeds can land a person in the ICU. Like, it can be a medical emergency. And it's also just a good reminder that, 80 or 90% of our serotonin is in our gut, but 8% is in our platelets. Serotonin plays a really important role in clotting. That's why your surgeon needs to know whether or not you're on an antidepressant. That's why a birthing mother, it's really important to know whether or not she's on an antidepressant, because it can lead to placental hemorrhaging and that sort of thing. So uh,
Hmm.
this nosebleed is not like something that you just dismiss, like, wow, that can't be anything. That can't be the Lexapro. And then, of course, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just like, no, it can't be. It can't be the Lexapro. But anyway, go ahead. The next ones are what?
Yeah, so there was that suicide attempt.
Hmm.
Um, and the other one was, they called it activation syndrome. And that's an interesting way to phrase things. It seems to me, they described it as agitation and restlessness. It seems like one of the kids got akathisia.
Hmm.
Mm.
And akathisia is a profoundly horrific and horrible side effect that you can think of as chemical terror. It is anxiety on steroids. It is
It's horrible.
profound anxiety that drives people to suicide, even people
Hmm.
who aren't depressed. And I believe you guys interviewed Kim Witzak, and
Hmm.
she tells an incredible story about how her husband was essentially killed by Pfizer due to the side effect of akathisia that they were gaslighting the public and doctors about. So yeah,
Hmm.
what it seems like one of these kids got akathisia, even though they don't like to
Label
apply
it.
that label. Yeah,
Hmm.
even in the page package handouts, they call it restlessness, and that is such a disservice.
Oh.
That is such gaslighting to call akathisia. Oh, it's restless. It's like,
Right.
pull up YouTube and just search for akathisia, and just look at somebody who's suffering from it, and call that restlessness. Like, it's that's really angering,
The
genuinely.
minimizing of that is profound and ridiculous. And
Yeah,
I want to go back to that 16 16
yeah,
kids. Because the conversation that I've said these before. I blatantly say 16 people had to be harmed for one to benefit, who was also harmed. And people don't like that because they're like, or nothing happened to those 16 people. So what does it matter if 16 people took this and nothing changed for them, if one person can be saved? And this is where you were talking that we cannot forget that these medications don't have inert things, that like they are going to impact bodies
right,
from head to toe if you're taking them. So
right.
there will be an impact, a physical impact, a psychological impact. There will be an impact. And then the longer you take it, the worse the impact is going to be for these kids. So I also wonder what happened at the end of the 8 weeks. Did the kids come off? Did they stay on? Like, what happened to them? Do we
Yeah,
know?
yeah, let's talk about that. Just to go back to that 16 to 1 quick though,
Yeah.
like, okay, 70% of those kids are going to have sexual side effects too, like,
Yes.
right off the
Yeah.
bat. Like,
Right.
and then
They could be permanent even in an 8 week study. It
that
could be
could be
permanent.
permanent. Yeah, that
Yep.
could be permanent. I've talked to people with PSSD who were on psych meds for less than this 8-week study years prior, and they were still suffering from the sexual side effects. So yeah,
Yeah, and I want to bring in the PSSD, the side effect of like anhedonia or apathy and all of that. That's also part of PSSD, like this idea that you just cannot feel deep emotion, right? So it's not just, my genitals feel like my elbow, right? There's more. It is a suffering that people have. So I don't want to dismiss it as just like it's a genitalia thing. It is not. It is a very profound, emotional, dark place as well. So and I think that also gets minimized if it's ever presented to patients, that it just has to do with libido or, genitalia, right? That's it. But it is not. The depths of that are hellacious for people to not be able to access that emotional state. That is really, if you think about it, just taking away your whole pleasure system, a pleasure of any kind, the pleasure system. And so I wonder if people got that information ahead of time, even ahead of a study. If like you're like, okay, moms, this is what PSSD actually is, and this is the impact, and it can be permanent. Do we still have your permission to go forward? I'd be like, fuck no. What? Are you kidding me? If someone were to actually describe what it is, I think people would have a very different, they wouldn't say yes as frequently. So I don't know.
Yeah, it severs you from your own humanity. And that's
Yeah.
why I appreciate so much the people who are out there being advocates and spreading awareness about it, like PSSD Network or all the harmed people who get on X and get on social media and try and say, like, hey, this happened to me. You don't want this to happen to you or one of your loved ones, because the suffering that they're going through is profound.
Right. And the risk is not small. You said 70% of those people will have some of that risk, right? To do it. That is not small.
That's not small. And that's from incredibly gamed studies where they try to avoid finding information about side effects like that. I suspect it's actually a lot
Way more.
higher than that. But yeah, they love to hide side effects, and sexual side effects are so easy to just blame on the patient that they never bring it around to actually correctly attribute it to the medication.
Can you explain to people, I know we're going off in a little different space here, but yeah, I was told I needed a sex therapist. That's my story, right? Jen, you just need a sex therapist. This is your problem. This is why this is happening to you.
I was told that my husband just wanted too much sex from me and I was incapable
So
of giving it
it's
to
like
him.
all the dumb things that we've been told. But can you talk about how PSSD as a side effect of a medication actually gets reported?
Actually gets reported. So
or not. This is just it, right?
Like I would say it doesn't get reported, because if a patient who's been harmed by their prescriber goes to their prescriber and says, like, hey, this is what I'm experiencing, a lot of the times a prescriber is just going to say, like, well, that's part of your depression. That's
Correct.
not for a
Yes.
medication,
That's-
because
or
they
your
are ignorant about it.
relationship or
Right.
whatever it is.
All this bullshit that we were told, right? So at no point then would my provider have went to a system that does exist where you are to report side effects from medications. This is what I'm trying to get, because I don't think people understand like the process of how this should go, because we're talking about 70% as being a number, and people are like, well, where does that number come from, and why it probably is so off, so underreported.
Right.
Because it's not being reported in the first place, right? So when I go and I talk about the side effects with my prescriber that I have to Lexapro and all the things that I've gone through, it goes nowhere. It stops right there with my prescriber, unless my prescriber reports this out to a system that actually does exist. That's out there, guys, but people aren't using it.
Right.
Right?
It's a game plan that they've been using incredibly effectively for multiple medication classes, not just antidepressants. They do this for vaccines. They do this for statins. They treat a lack of evidence of harm as proof of safety while they game the systems that gather the safety data. Have you guys heard of a trial run-in phase? I just learned about this recently, and it is mind-blowing that this is the industry standard. But basically, when a pharma company is going to do a clinical trial, they take their participants, give them the medication, see who has side effects, kick them out of the study, and then start the real trial, and then they don't include them in their safety data. And this is just the industry standard, and they justify it by saying, like, well, if we lose too many participants, it won't be a valid study, so we have to do this in order to get valid results. And everybody from the journals to the FDA is just like, okay, that sounds legit.
Right.
And they pretend we have good safety data on these things. Like, it is insane how broken these systems are.
Mhm.
And yet there is a system for reporting psychiatric side effects.
Oh yeah, FAIRS.
For provider.
It's the
But
parallel
people
to VAERS
people
for
dismiss
vaccine.
that. Wait,
VAERS,
people
yeah, they do.
dismiss FAIRS all the time because
Yeah.
it's like,
what I'm,
well, that's just self-report. That's just
Right,
a
it's self-
self-report
that can't
data.
be
So
legit.
why would we?
Yes.
You know, you're reporting all these weird things that happen to you on FAIRS, but that's just self-report. That's subjective.
Yep.
This is all a subjective experience, everybody. Like, your life is a subjective experience. Whatever's happening to you is subjective according to you, right? So that's the system, but that system gets blatantly dismissed incessantly. Like, it's
Yeah.
all because I remember that with COVID stuff, like, report it to FAIRS, report, and people are like, why? That's not evidence-based. That's just subjectivity. And I'm like, so you're telling me that the PARS questionnaire isn't a subjective test? Like,
Right.
anytime you ask about mental health symptomology, it's subjective. Like, that's all it is. Nobody's measuring anything, really.
And maybe it's my proximity bias because I'm a psych nurse, but I swear psych patients are the most gaslit of anyone in our medical system. Like, they are just gaslit from beginning to end, whether it's from being told that their depression is caused by a chemical imbalance of low serotonin, or it's the whole, like, oh, this antidepressant didn't work, it's your fault because you are treatment resistant, or
Yep.
being
Love
gaslit on the
that.
side effects.
Mm.
Like, it's just nonstop with psych patients, and it takes
It
away
is.
their agency. It makes them feel less than. It's doing catastrophic amounts of harm.
In
Mhm.
this study, David, 1.4 was considered statistically significant. So when we get back on the train of breaking the study apart, can you explain to people what they need to look for, and specifically in this study, what 1.4 actually means?
Yeah, so in this study on the PARS scale, a clinician is taught that a 4-point change is evidence of benefit. That is something that is perceptible to the patients. Like, that is noticeable. That is, your life has gotten just a tiny bit better. Your anxiety has gotten just a tiny bit better if your score changes by 4 points. In the case of Lexapro, when they pooled all the kids together and did some magic math, they found a 1.4 point difference in the kids who took Lexapro versus placebo. So
1.4.
1.4.
yeah,
1.4,
point,
Wow,
guys.
that's
point difference.
profound. Yeah.
Yeah. And
You said if you had a 1.4 difference between that and being a placebo, I'd be like, just give my kid placebo and he might think he feels better.
So that was found, though, guys, to be statistically significant.
right.
Enough that there is a benefit. A
Yeah.
one-
Call it
1.4
safe and
difference.
effective. That's enough
Right.
to call it effective.
Your
Mhm.
child does not perceive their anxiety being any better at all, but we're going to call it statistically effective.
So
Like,
therefore it is.
I can't wrap my brain around
no,
this part,
it's-
David.
yeah.
There's no
can't.
difference. Your child will not feel a difference, but the numbers say it's statistically significant so that it is effective. That's exactly what this is saying, and that's ridiculous. That's the most
It's-
ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
It's absurd. It is absurd.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you look at the side effects that happened. It's not like this was inert, and it's like, you know what? It's not much benefit, but this was really, really, really safe. Like, no, if you applied the same magic math to the safety data, this is profoundly unsafe. I
And very
mean,
dangerous. Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
take 16 kids for one to feel benefit, but it only takes 13 kids for one of them to become suicidal with actual suicidal actions in the Lexapro group. Like, wow, for them to say that these results are promising, and for it to end up like being what this study is, what the FDA ended up going off of in order to say, hey, we're approving Lexapro to treat anxiety in kids. Like, the FDA looked at this and were like, yeah, it seems legit. We'll
In a peer-reviewed journal, like what else do we need, to go off of, right? So
yeah. Yeah.
David, explain to people what relative risk is, and then talk about relative risk in this study.
Okay, relative risk. So relative risk versus absolute risk. This has become one of my soapboxes, and yeah, people's eyes glaze over with the statistics.
Just listen, everybody. This is important, though. Like, seriously. Give David the floor and just fucking pay attention for a hot second. Okay, lock it in. Go.
Okay, so suicidal thoughts on the placebo, we had 2 kids. That was 1.5%. For Lexapro, we had 13. That was 9.5%. If this had been efficacy data, the authors would have been ecstatic because that's a huge difference. But unfortunately, this is suicidal thoughts. So for funsies, we can apply some magic math to these numbers, and we will paint their safety data in the same manipulative way that they usually paint their efficacy data. And we do that by conflating relative and absolute risk. So for suicidality from Lexapro, the absolute risk is 9.5% minus 1.5%, so 8%. That's the absolute risk of suicidality, in which case Lexapro is worse. Lexapro is worse by 8%. Relative risk, you take 9.5%, divide by 1.5, and you get 6.33. And then you take that minus 1 times 100, and this gives you a really big percent. This is what they do to say, like, hey, the flu shot is 80% effective and 70% effective. That's that sort of thing. Is they take these 2 tiny numbers, divide them against each other, and come up with a big number that sounds impressive to people. If we apply that type of math to the increase in suicidal thoughts, we get 533%. So that's what parents are being sold on here. Hey, mom, dad, want to give your child 0 symptom relief for their anxiety and increase their chance of suicidal thoughts by 533%? Have we got a drug for you? It is Lexapro. Okay. It is FDA approved.
Right there. That, guys, but that right there, okay, what David just said, this is the risk. This is relative risk. 533%.
Relative risk. Yeah.
Relative risk that your
child. How can you even sell that as saving lives? How can you even
Well, see, that's where you can't, which is why this study is so mind-blowing to me. To me, honestly, the Paxil scandal makes more sense because they looked at the same data and their term for it was, this is not marketable. That's what the executives said at Glaxo about Paxil when they looked at their data that looked exactly like this. And that's why they hired ghost authors and came up with entire fraudulent numbers that said it is safe and effective. And it is mind-blowing that a couple decades after that happened, we have the people at AbbVie Pharmaceuticals looking at these numbers and going like, you know what, we're just going to go with it. We're just going to publish it like this. And it passes peer review and it gets published in a journal. And the FDA looks at it, and the FDA looks at these numbers and they say, yeah, okay, we're going to approve this for kids.
In every article, David, if people are reviewing these, there's always a discussion. There's always a discussion point, okay, that once you get through all the data, then they talk about all the discussion pieces of this. Is that part reviewed in this article? Do they discuss that 533% relative risk and talk about the other confounding variables that may be present that are creating that risk?
Ooh, I feel like you're going for a specific answer, and I don't know off the
Okay, that's okay. I don't want to put you on this. I didn't read the whole thing top to bottom, so I don't know the fucking answer. But I'm thinking about this from a research standpoint, right? When you have holes, you need to address the holes. Kind of like what you're talking about with Paxil. This is not marketable. So we're going to create how we can still market this, right? But in this case, it's like very glaring. And I'm kind of just wondering if there was anything that they actually addressed to make up what I would call a excuse for this crazy ass number. And I don't know if it was in there or not. That's why I was asking.
Oh, no. Well, no, it is a pattern. And it's one of those things where, you know, when you read the synopsis of a study, one of the things you have to ask yourself is, does their data actually match their conclusions? Because what we see over and over and over is the data does not match the conclusions. It does not match what they're saying in the discussion. And it's one of the biggest red flags when you're trying to peruse clinical research. You know, the very first thing you do is you look at the conflicts of interest of the authors. And if they're are all these conflicts of interest. It just goes right in the trash because you can't trust it. And
It should go right in the
should.
trash. Like, as a
No, it's not.
reader,
It's peer reviewed, and it's
right? I know, right? As a reader, it should go in the trash.
Yes.
Like you
As a
should
reader, it
read
should go in the trash.
Yeah.
In this
Step
case, every single person was conflicted. They're getting paid by the manufacturer of Lexapro to conduct this study. So this is one where I only take a look at their numbers to see where they're doing the magic math, just as a thought experiment. But if I were actually like looking for information that I trusted to be able to understand this topic, this is one where this study would just go right in the trash.
Yeah.
Because
Is
you
this
can't trust
study
it.
the reason we're talking about this study is what? Like, is this study actually one of the big studies that's going to push Lexapro to children?
Oh
Is
yeah.
you think-
Oh,
yeah.
totally. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because the FDA did approve it. Guess what? We don't get to know about that process or what discussion was had at the FDA. We know the name of the woman who put her name on the document that the FDA published, saying like, "Hey, the FDA we are giving our blessing to using Lexapro to treat anxiety for kids." We know her name. It was Tiffany something. She still has a thriving career at the FDA. They've purged out people like Vinay Prasad and Marty McCary and Tracy Beth Hogue, but like people like Tiffany, she's still got a thriving career there, and that's because she's a pharmagool. And all these new people who went to the FDA, they were just so out of line because they wanted the FDA to actually have evidence of safety and efficacy before approving products. And I mean, what high standards. Obviously we had to get them out of there and return to business as usual.
Yeah. I think we should have her on the show, and you can come on too, and we'll have a 4-way conversation with her.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But
I do. Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about you had some influence with PSSD in a database for medical providers, and I would like for you to talk about that so people understand what the database is and your influence with that.
Oh, sure. So there is a clinician reference tool called UpToDate. It is this giant system, this giant resource tool for clinicians that is accessed millions of times a day around the world, not just for antidepressants, but for anything. Like doctors in hospitals all over the world use this system, nurses too. And it's just a way to look up, hey, what is the up-to-date evidence on whatever topic is at hand for their patient. And they are constantly looking at new research and trying to keep things relevant and, as the name suggests, up to date. And so I've been reaching out to them about PSSD because we're at a point here where federal regulators around the world, except the FDA, all acknowledge PSSD as a side effect to antidepressants. And it's like, well, we can't change the FDA. We can't force the FDA to do that, but maybe some of these other organizations that provide things like patient education materials, things like that, information for prescribers, maybe we can get them to change, even if the FDA won't, because there are mountains of evidence at this point, to the point where all these other federal regulators, whether it's Australia or the UK or the EMA around the world, recognize PSSD. And that was the premise upon which I reached out to them. And after, honestly, it took about a year, but now they are updating all their PSSD. They're adding PSSD as a warning as a class warning for all antidepressant, like SSRI, SNRI medications. So,
Okay, I want you to say that one more time out loud. What happened?
Okay, so UpToDate is adding a warning about permanent sexual dysfunction as a class warning for all antidepressants like SSRIs, SNRIs.
David Wayne is the PSSD hero of the day, if anyone did not know that.
Yes.
So
for everybody that is on marriages ruined by antidepressants, right? For everybody that is part of the PSSD network. I mean, we've had so many individuals on this show that are part of this. This is something I live with. David, you changed the game. You're changing the game.
I'm trying to. I'm working on Micromedics right now. They're another huge vendor for patient education materials, and I actually got them to agree to add a warning about PSSD last year. They've just been very, very slow in updating their materials, so it's trickling in over the course of the year. Up to date was great. They when they decided they were going to do it, they changed it immediately. Micromedics a little slower, but I am very proud of that because between the two of them, those are the biggest vendors for patient education materials about antidepressants, and they're both adding warnings about PSSD, even if our impotent FDA is not.
So I am very proud to know you, having done that with the level of persistence that I'm certain that you've had to have behind the scenes. So I'm really grateful that you are on that path. So thank you so much.
I'd like to add you to the honorary club of tenacious fuckers that I'm the president of.
I appreciate that.
You are now part of. You are now the secretary of this club because tenacity is what it takes, right?
It does take tenacity. Yeah.
It's
well, I'm passionate about it because I look back at the years I spent as a hospital psych nurse when I just had the blinders on and I was completely trusting, and I was telling my patients that their depression was caused by a chemical imbalance of low serotonin. And I was telling the nurses that I was training that that's the situation because that's how I was taught, and I was just completely ignorant about it. And boy, when you learn better and then you look back like that is that's some dark stuff, and that's some tough stuff to process. Even just processing clinical research. Like I feel like I know less now than I did right when I graduated nursing school, because it's like I have to untangle all these lies that I was taught that I've believed over the years, and that is that process sucks. And the way that I'm trying to reconcile all that is through advocacy and through talking to people like you who are doing good work out in the world. And I don't have any aspirations to be an influencer or stuff like that, but that's why I'm trying to do these things behind the scenes, because that's more my wheelhouse is doing advocacy through behind the scenes like that.
Yeah. Well, that's why Jen and I do this too. Cause I feel like for us, it kind of started off as like, we're not going to call out everybody else. Firstly, we're going to call out ourselves, and then we're going to call out everybody else. So it's a very similar advocacy role that we've chosen to. So, all right. Any final words, Mr. David Wayne?
No, just appreciate you guys. Keep fighting the good fight, and unfortunately, there's no shortage of scandals to talk about. I don't know. We probably don't have time to talk about how they tapered people off of Lexapro in this, or is that something we can?
We can. We've got about 5 more minutes yet. So if you want to talk, I actually didn't write that part on my sticky note, which is pretty interesting. I didn't write that, given that's my fucking life right now. So, God damn it! Tell us.
This trial was scandalous from beginning to end. Everything that we just talked about, whether it's their criteria for safety, their criteria for efficacy, it's just ridiculous. But probably the worst part is their data on, hey, how safe is it to taper off of Lexapro? Tapering is, of course, your guys' wheelhouse. It's in the national conversation recently because of what RFK Jr. said. It was something that was important to these study authors too. Clinicians are beginning to recognize that tapering is a thing, that these very short, abrupt, jarring tapers that has been the standard for so long, like that. That's a problem, and we need better data to be able to do better. So these study authors had a plan going into the study. The kids who are on 20 milligrams, we're going to put them on 10 milligrams for a while until the end of the study and see how they do. The kids on 10 milligrams, we're going to drop them down to 0, and we're going to see how they do. That was their plan. What they ended up doing was not decreasing their doses.
Oh, this part.
I know. I'm like, here it comes.
So they screwed that up. So they screwed it up. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. But then they wrote up their article as if they did. They pretended that they tapered these kids off because they meant to. And then they said, wow, there were no issues with tapering these kids. These kids didn't have any side effects from being taken
because you
off
didn't
of
do
the
it.
Lexapro that they weren't taken off of. They
Yeah.
didn't say like, hey, we screwed
What?
up. Like, we meant to do this and we didn't, so we don't have good discontinuation data. No, they just pretended that they tapered them off. And what I would
Is that
say,
written in the study that all happened? Is that written somewhere?
No,
Oh.
that the FDA caught that, and then the reanalysis done by Moncrief and Horowitz called that out too. But the FDA itself caught that before they still approved it, which is so
they went, oh,
it's
here
so
this happened, but oh well.
Yeah. Oh
Still
well.
looks good. Oh
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Inconsequential.
The journal hasn't retracted it. The journal that published it hasn't added a notice of, what do they call it? Like when
Yeah, I know what you're
there's
talking
like
about.
a
I don't know the
notice
name
that they
of it.
flag articles with where it's like,
Yep.
hey, there's a problem with this study. They haven't done any of that. And this is just, I don't know what to call this. Call it an overt lie or fraud, or like
Fraud.
you can't do that. You can't say like, hey, that it was safe to discontinue Lexapro for these kids when you didn't actually discontinue the Lexapro.
I don't even understand how they could like just leave that part out of the study then, if that's what you're going to do. Like, don't even say you did something and you didn't do it. But this just makes me wonder how many other trials like this have happened in the same way. Like, oh, we discontinued people off. No, you didn't.
Right. Yeah.
Safe and effective. No. How do you know? You didn't even do it.
Is this the industry standard? Just like that pre-trial run-in phase is the industry standard, like
let's just pretend. Let's pretend.
Yeah.
So apparently what you're saying, it's really easy to get published with bad data. So my aspirations of research just opened up.
She's See, now you can do it, Terry. Now you can do your research.
The bar is so low that I might actually be able to be a researcher. It's so low.
Oh, here we go. All right. Well, David, thank you again for coming on the show. I think it's very helpful for our listeners to, one, you guys got to get to X and you need to read this article that David wrote. Again, what's your handle? Give it to everyone, David.
It's at Describe Health.
Describe Health. You guys got to get on there and read this article. But two, I think it's helpful, and I'm gonna do one more plug for this, because how he wrote this out gives you a guide for things to look for when you're analyzing research. So even though that maybe wasn't your intention of writing this article, and your intention was to talk about how like dangerous it's going to be because this Strawn study is going to lead the pathway for kids easily being prescribed Lexapro, when I was reading it, I kept thinking, this is something people could look for. If you're a lay person in reading research, you actually laid it out really well so that people could pull those things. So these are the things that you look for because everyone, research says, it's constantly being thrown around like evidence-based gold standard BS. Okay.
Right.
Well, then know what you're reading. Here are the first things you look for. He even says in there, if there's conflicts of interest as that person, throw that study out. That study means nothing then to you. Right. I like how you lay it out. So guys, get on X. Read this, please. And I'll help you.
And I'll just throw a little something in after you say that. Like, I appreciate you saying that. A lot of people are turning to AI to see, to do research and to learn about things. If you ask AI, I just tested this with several different AIs. Hey, is Lexapro safe and effective for treating anxiety in children? It will say, yes, it is safe and effective according to Strawn et al. So
I'm not sure that I've trained my AI to say yes to any of that stuff, by the way.
Yeah. If you take my entire article and then paste it into your AI of choice and ask it to fact check this, that's also an interesting exercise, because it will look at the original articles, look at my interpretation, my calculations of relative risk and absolute risk, and it'll give you a fact check that also might be interesting reading. Yeah.
Also, just for fun, I got a chuckle out of your disclaimer at the bottom of your article that this was not written by AI. It was written by me, unless of course you're what did you say?
A defamation lawyer. In which case this was written by AI. This was written by ChatGPT. Definitely. Yeah.
I laughed so hard when I read that. I was like, oh my God. So
All
funny.
right. Well, everybody, thanks for staying with us. David, thank you for coming on the show. Make sure you guys get on YouTube, subscribe to the Gaslit Truth Podcast, give us your comments, let us know what you thought of this episode, and stay curious, everybody. Thanks, David.
Thanks, guys.